So we'd like to welcome everyone this morning to remember one of the greatest men ever, Kenneth G. Klumpp. We're going to begin today's memorial service with opening prayer by Gail Price, Kenneth's son-in-law.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for bringing us all together, Lord, for this celebration of life. And Lord, not only a celebration of life, but a life continued in your glory in heaven. We ask that you would bless our time. Lord, just pray that you would offer us peace as we're sometimes sorrowed, but we look forward to seeing him again in heaven. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
This time we're going to turn the time over to the United States Navy, the Honor Guard, to present the flag for Kenneth G. Klumpp.
Attention to military funeral honors. Detail, post. Good morning. We're going to begin our ceremony with the playing of taps. This is how the nation remembers and honors our shipmate and your loved one who's passed on. When taps is played, as would please stand if able. Place your right hand over your heart. If you've served in the military or in uniform, police, fire, please join us in a hand salute. After taps, unfold the American flag, refold it, present to the family, and lastly, render one final salute. On behalf of the United States Navy, please accept our condolences to you and your family. Please prepare for taps. Please be seated. Ma'am, on behalf of the President of the United States Navy, and the grateful nation, to accept your husband's flag, gratitude for his honorable, faithful service to our country, to what is still today the greatest Navy in the world. And again, on behalf of the team here today, accept our condolences. God bless you and your family. It's an honor to be here.
So much.
You're welcome to give your husband, our shipmate, a nice Navy send-off, okay?
God bless the Navy.
Thank you. It's hard getting old. Should have brought my glasses. Kenneth G. Klumpp, 93 of Washingtonville, New York, passed away peacefully at home with his wife Joanne by his side on Thursday, December 5th, 2024. Was born on March 5th, 1931 at his home in New Milford, New Jersey. He attended high school at Dumont High, where he excelled in sports. He was a member of the varsity baseball team, and in his junior and senior years playing second base. He was a standout member of the varsity football team, leading the team and the league in rushing and touchdowns as the right halfback. In 1948, he was awarded the Art Hammer Trophy for the most valuable player in the league. He was also an extremely talented artist, both in painting and drawing. After graduating high school, Ken enlisted in the United States Navy during the Korean War. He was assigned to the USS Turner, a destroyer-class ship, and was part of the battleship destroyer convoy protecting the aircraft carrier USS Midway. While part of the convoy, they traveled to various parts in Europe and other destinations in the Atlantic. It was his great honor to serve his country faithfully, and he loved being part of a great crew and ship. Upon his completion in the Navy, Ken returned home to New Jersey, where he became a draftsperson for the Public Service Company. He also worked for his grandfather's company, John G. Klumpp & Sons, in New York City, where they made custom wood-turned products, including furniture, bowling alley pins, and bats for major league teams in New York City. He went on to become a very gifted carpenter and builder, building countless homes between New Jersey and New York. He was an expert woodworking, building custom decks, cabinets, and home additions. His reputation was so well received everywhere he went, whether it was in town, to a store, to a building supply company, you could hear employees say, "Kenny, so good to see you." In later years, he served as an assistant building inspector in Cornwall and Blooming Grove, New York. On July 7th, 1956, he was driving his car when he spotted a beautiful girl named Joanne sitting on a white fence with her friends near Closter, New Jersey. He knew from that time she would become the love of his life. They dated for a year, and on September 15th, 1957, they were married in Closter, New Jersey, and became parents to 6 wonderful children. Ken and Joanne celebrated 67 years of marriage. He was immensely proud to be a father, a father-in-law. He is survived by his wife Joanne, his son Brent, his wife Cynthia, daughter Eva, and her husband Dale, son Tyler, son Jared, his wife Linda, son Grant, and a daughter Vanessa, who passed away in 1969. And we are comforted to know she was there to welcome him back to heaven. He was a grandfather to Bryce, Krista, and Janae, and a great-grandfather to Killian, Jack, Zetta, and soon-to-be Faye on the way. Everyone enjoyed his humor, tap dancing on the job site, colorful attire, especially his Argyle socks. Some thought Ken to be a quiet man, but those who knew him well will recall his jokester. He was a jokester. He always gave loving advice to his children that helped him shape them into successful, loving, and responsible individuals. Lastly, he loved his wife Joanne with all his heart, and Joanne loved him back equally. At this time, we're going to have some memories from some of the children of Ken. We'll start with Grant Klumpp.
All right, just took a couple notes here, 6 pages or so. Try not to make it a 40 filibuster here. My dad, Kenneth Klumpp, who he truly was. Kind, generous, and absolutely selfless. Always willing to lend and his hand, whether that was offering his services, monetary means if possible, or most importantly, just offering sincere advice by way of his own personal wisdom, brought on by not just his ethics and morals, but by virtue of his own natural personality. His positive demeanor, his beloved humor, his confidence for always coming through, especially when it was needed the most. True hallmarks of a hero. Memories. Around 1979 or 1980, dates, years, I remember that I had been acting up, and my mother had me stay in my playpen. I think it was my brother's. And that's just how it was back in those days. It could have been worse. And I'm glad that she did. In hindsight, I probably could have used more stern correction for being spoiled. But I can only say that now because it's not 1979 or 1980. I was hysterically crying and pleading in my infant mind for my mom to let me get out of that playpen. Dad had just got home from work and went into the room to see what was going on. Now keep in mind, I'm 2 or 3 years old at the time. He actually tried to calmly explain to me why this had to be done and that I had to deal with the consequences for my poor behavior. But I'll never forget the look of sympathy that he had on his face for me. I actually felt bad. You know, kid. That honestly gave me comfort. I still remember that. About an hour later, after going to a local store, he returned to me and gave me a half pint of mint chocolate chip ice cream and a small die-cast model farm tractor. True story.
I didn't know.
Whatever agony, quotations, that I might still have had quickly dissipated. And that's who he was. He did thoughtful things, not because he just wanted to appease people without justification, but because that was a true reflection of his heart. He sincerely cared. Another memory was when I would sneak out of my room at about 11 p.m. when I was very young, and instead of sending me back to my room, he would pick me up and put me on his lap. And he was watching, he usually used to watch old black and white movies or footage from World War II. And he would explain to me what it was all about in layman's terms so that I might understand. In 1989, spring of 1989, when I was 12 years old, I was helping him do some landscaping work by the edge of our property on Holstown Road. He noticed that there was a dead possum in the middle of the road. He then told me to go to the tool shed, which is known as the chicken coop, and grab a shovel and pickaxe. He went to the garage to get something else. We then picked away at the earth and dug a ditch with a shovel, and then with that same shovel, he picked up the dead possum and laid it to rest in the ditch. He then proceeded to sprinkle lime powder, over the possum and surrounding area. And he explained to me why this was done, something about keeping the pH balance of the soil neutralized. I didn't know at the time what he was talking about. So in essence, he was not only preserving and helping the earth, but he was respecting that dead possum. After we filled that ditch back over the dead possum with the loose dirt, he stood still. I still remember this. He said a prayer. He didn't exclaim about it or explain why. He just did his thing. It was out of duty and appreciation for what is so sacred, the true goodness of life. In closing, there are so many more stories that I could share, and I'm sure that I will in the days ahead. But the great confluence is this: authenticity meaning harmony. In other words, he was always true to his own self and just had a pure, loving demeanor about him that people just simply admired and adored. He understood sacrifice, modesty, humility, leadership, sympathy, empathy, respect, and far above what was needed in all said attributes to successfully complete his divine mission here on earth. One last thing that I wanted to share. I called him on March 5th, 2021 for his 90th birthday. And wanted to tell him something that has always pulled at my heartstrings. It was in the spring of 2011. And Dad and I went down to New Jersey to see his parents' burial sites. In particular, upon leaving the cemetery where his father's physical remains lay to rest, we noticed a person sitting in a fold-out chair, an umbrella in front of a grave site or tombstone. It was clearly creepy. As we were driving past this, my dad softly yet strongly said to me, and in all good fortitude, "You can't bring them back." I pondered exactly what he had meant by that, and then it occurred to me. He meant that you have to move on and forge ahead. This is a very integral lesson in life. You learn wisdom in this, as this advances your soul. And when the lesson is completed, you reunite with each other and realize that this was just, albeit a very important one, but just another step along the endless journey of existence itself. I love you, Dad, and looking forward to meeting with you again. I have some random notes here. I'll just. I don't want to sound verbatim or anything, but funny stories. On that video that I sent Brett. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it again. Funniest stories with me and Jared. In 1989, we used to be huge wrestling fans. And we were wrestling, we were watching Saturday night's main event. And I was pretending to be Hulk Hogan, you were pretending to be Randy Macho Man Savage. And we were wrestling. And you threw me into the wall. There's a huge, yes, there's a huge dent.
He doesn't remember it that way.
And we're like, oh no, Dad's gonna get so mad. And you had the brilliant idea of saying, tell you what, I'll spackle. Then I'll go to bed, set my alarm clock for an hour, wake you up, you come back, paint it. Then you set your alarm clock for an hour, come back and then wake me up, then I'll go and back and forth. This was like from what, midnight to 5:30 in the morning or something, because Dad would get up pretty early. Next morning, Dad, 8 o'clock, comes by, he's walks through the hallway, and he stops. And he looks at us, he's like, you guys, how could you? And the first thing I said was, exactly. He did it. All right. Yeah, I think that's enough for now.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Is it that your paint and spackle job wasn't flawless?
his spackle job was horrible. My
I'm sure it was.
What's that? You were upstairs sleeping.
This happened to
We're in the hall.
Remember when you walk out of the kitchen to the left, on that left wall?
Oh.
Yeah.
Alright.
Good job, Grant.
I'm gonna get this.
Thanks, Grant, we appreciate that.
Is there a little manila envelope over there? Small?
Next, we're going to hear from Eva, the daughter of Ken. Following Eva's memories, we're going to have a musical selection of Amazing Grace performed by Cynthia Klumpp, Ken's daughter-in-law, and Krista Morgan and Janae Klumpp, his granddaughters. We'll go to that point.
One on, please. The call's very important to me. I'll get a chair.
Are we doing a master chair?
I need glasses too. Sorry. As you can see, I have something very special here. Plus, I also have beautiful eggs.
Lovely.
So I'm gonna, let me tie this all together. Why we have the eggs and the chicken?
$15.
It probably is. Okay, I had given a card to my father, I believe 5 years ago. And we were going through some of the stuff and he kept it. And I reread it and I thought, oh, this is perfect. When I was little, my dad's hands seemed as if they could hold the world. If I measured my palm against his, I couldn't help but marvel at the difference. You know, you've seen my father's hands, they're pretty big. To me, they were so big, so strong. How could a daughter feel anything but safe with hands like that to guide her? Today I see that my dad's hands hold more than I ever imagined. An openness of spirit, a generosity of heart, and a father's timeless love and loyalty. So my memory, one of my favorite gifts that Papa, we started calling him Papa when Dale and I got married, but Dad, Papa, gave me was the love of animals, especially chickens. I was only a young girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old. With his big, strong hands, he taught me the beauty of these creatures. He would gently spread their wings, and I have to hold this. Spread their wings and show me their iridescent feathers. He pointed out how the top feathers would protect the chicken in the rain or snow, and the soft, downy feathers underneath would keep them warm in the winter. We would watch them take dirt baths. So anyone who doesn't know about chickens, they go out in the dirt and they scratch it up and they get it all fluffed up underneath. And then that helped keep them clean and keep the bugs off of them. And like I always remember laughing when the chickens got done with that, they would get up and shake, and this cloud of dust went everywhere. So that was very fun to watch. Dad would point out the wondrous way God created these birds. They had strong legs. Sorry, lost my place here. That were covered with scale-thick skin and hard-pointed claws to help scratch the bugs in the grass. The rooster also had sharp spurs, and that's usually on the inside of their legs, that they would use as a defense mechanism. They would jump up and try to puncture your leg, or I think he chased you?
Me.
Yeah, the rooster chased you around. So we tried to stay far away from them. With those strong yet gentle hands, Dad showed me their head. The red comb on the top and the soft like skin near their earlobes and their beak. This is called a wattle. Since chickens do not sweat, these parts help keep them cool in the summer. Did you know that? Well, I didn't know that either, because I just Googled it. But their ears were small. This one doesn't really have it, but I remember their ears are just a small, soft covering, and it has little feathers on it. And I would open it up, and Dad would be very gentle. And I would open it up and softly speak, hello, hello. But more like I was saying, bark, 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 bark. Sorry. We examined their eyes with the golden iris and the black pupils. He taught me that chickens have better vision than humans because their eyes are on both sides of their head. Curiously, they have a 360-degree range of vision because of this. Chickens don't rotate their eyes. Their eyes don't rotate, but rather they move their head back and forth to see things. One of the eyes is for distance, and the other eye is for up close, so they can find the tasty worms in the grass. I was always a curious child and still am. I'm amazed by what Papa showed me. We inspected their strong beaks. Chickens do not have teeth, but small ridges inside their beaks, and I was amazed how they could crack the corn and the oyster shells with their beaks. In the summertime, often, we would give them leftover corn and watermelon, and that was a real treat for them. Finally, there was egg collecting. So here we go, here's some beautiful eggs. So Papa we'd go in here, here's the chicken that God has created. So, love you, Papa. And anybody wants to take some eggs, but this is for little Miss Zetta who has taken leave. And wait, there's some little chicks in here for her too. Thank you.
refuse to shine. Yet God who sent me here will be forever mine. He'll be forever mine. He'll be forever mine.
Yeah, beautiful.
Next we'll hear from two of Ken's other sons. We'll hear from Tyler, and then we'll hear from Jared and go to that point.
All right, well, everyone knows, most of you know that I'm the quiet one. I don't have a lot to say all the time, but I'm gonna say something that would have been a little more fitting if we were at the cemetery. So you have to imagine it in here. When I was a kid, teenager mostly, every morning before school, most of the time it was me and Dad sitting at the kitchen table in silence. Neither of us talked very much, eating cereal. I was, of course, reading the comics, and what was Dad reading? The obituaries. I don't know what his obsession was or why he felt he needed to read the obituaries. Maybe it was out of respect for some person who didn't have a family and died, or he wanted to see if there was an old person that he knew. But every week he would read the obituaries. And one of his other obsessions was the cemetery and keeping tabs on it, checking up on our sister's grave. And so this kind of rubbed off on me over the years. This place became, the cemetery became a very special place to me at least. And I know it was to Dad. But it was also a special place to my two best friends, Scott Lynch and Jared. Because that was a place, it was a halfway point when we were teenagers. We would ride our bikes from my house to the general store. That was probably about 4 or 5 mile drive. But the cemetery was halfway. And we'd stop every time, all summer long, for years and years, to just take a rest. We would explore that cemetery. We looked at every single grave marker, read all the dates, and very far back, those old stones dated back to the 1600s. And that may have been why Dad picked that place for the family. A very historical place, and it's beautiful. I hope you all get a chance to drive by there. The stone is there right now. And just take a look around. I know it's not the best weather, but in the summer, in the winter, spring and fall, it's beautiful grounds. And so I think Dad would have wanted somebody to say something about that. So I'm sure he's very happy to be there right now. So I love you, Dad. Thank you.
Say a few things here. As some of you know, I talk a lot for a living. This is what I do. I talk to people, and I rarely ever do this. I never bring notes. I just kind of speak from my heart. This is kind of hard, so I'm gonna read a little. Bear with me. I'm gonna read some things to you. It's unfair, really, to try and summarize a man's life with one small speech. In the case of my father, it's impossible. There are too many stories, too many chapters, and too many memories. We all remember him in our own particular way, and all these versions are valid, part of his impressive long story. Some of you remember him as Ken, or even Kenny. How you doing, Betty?
Hello
Good to see you. For some of you, it was Mr. Klumpp. Hi, Patty. Or maybe even Chief. Some of you know him as Grandpa, Great Grandpa. For myself and my siblings, it was Dad. I spent a good amount of time with my father as a young man, working for him as I navigated the what now of early adulthood. He tolerated my dreamy, cranky, and unpredictable nature. I endured his crack of dawn cheeriness, singing in the truck, and the long, long detours to get to the job and back home. Plenty of stories there to tell. Some are fun, some not so pleasant. But a childhood memory came to me after he passed, and I'd like to share that with you, so bear with me, okay? I grew up on Holtztown Road, Campbell Hall, New York, back in the 70s. This area, really all of Orange County at that time, was as country as you could get. There were cows and horses grazing alongside the back roads. We'd feed them carrots, not apples, carrots, right? We had a large house, a good-sized patch of land to play outside, and a mysterious swath of woods behind the house. There was a pond back there too, maybe 150 yards, 200 yards from our backyard. It was big enough that you had to be careful, but also big enough to be a destination for adventure and fun. Sometime around 1979, 1980, just like your story, my father decided to take Tyler and I down to the pond. It was early January, right after Christmas, and Santa had brought us ice skates. Not figure skates, but hockey skates. It was an odd day because Dad was home on a weekday, and even more odd, he was sick. He was never sick, and if he was, he still went to work and just sucked it up. But true to his nature, he would not sit still and had a plan that cold winter day. I can remember Mom protesting, saying something to the effect of, "That's just great, Ken. That's just great. Walk through the snow and the freezing cold with the flu. And take the boys while you're at it. I'll have 3 sick people to take care of instead of 1. But he wasn't going to be denied, and we threw out all sorts of coats, hats, and scarves. When we were all bundled up, he went into the basement and emerged with 3 hockey sticks, a puck, and a sheepish grin. We trudged down to the pond, Dad leading the way. His breath was labored, and he looked different, pale, and sort of worried. Dad was our superhero, always strong, always enthusiastic. This version of him was strange and it confused me, but we were almost there and Tyler and I ran ahead, little forest sprites bobbing and weaving through the underbrush and racing to get to that frozen wonderland. When we arrived at the bank of the pond, Dad yelled out for us to sit tight as he came up from the rear. He sat us down on bushy grasses of frozen grass, laced up our skates, and explained how this game works. You have to guide the puck along the ice with your stick and get past the player in front of you. Tyler and I gave each other a hard stare. And so, the 3 of us set out on this frozen pond, hooting and hollering as we tried to keep our balance, laughing at each other, and wiping our frozen noses. Dad still didn't sound or look so good, though. But there was just too much fun to be had. He also told us a dark secret of hockey, the concept of checking. Basically, you skate as fast as you can towards the other player and launch yourself into him so you can knock them off their skates. Now we're talking. As we bumbled and stumbled around, I saw my chance. Dad was catching his balance, half upright with his back to me. I mustered up all the strength in my 65-pound body and moved forward, icy snot dripping from my nose and gaining momentum fast. Just as he caught his balance and turned towards the center of the ice, a skinny streak of oversized winter clothes came zipping into his belly, head first and damn it all. When I came to, I was on my back, reeling from the collision. Dad was also down, groaning and pushed over towards the edge of the pond. He was batting away branches of pricker bushes that were creeping over the ice where we collided. In the background of the violence, I could hear Tyler yelling my name in a shame on you way. I got to my feet and slid over towards Dad. On his knees now and breathing heavy, he looked up at me with those steely blue eyes. His forehead had a trickle of bright red blood where the thorns had dug in. My first thought was, oh no, what did I just do? Second later, my thought was, I'm gonna pay for this. Surely Dad, Kenny baby, the guy who could swing a hammer like Thor would rise up and bring the pain that I now deserved. But instead, he just smirked at me and pawed his head with those thin brown jersey gloves and slowly rose up. That's enough, men, he said. And for good measure, you too, Jared. We labored our way back to the house, silent except for the crunching snow and heavy breathing of Dad as he cleared the footpath for Tyler and me. I kept my guilty eyes on him as we approached the front door, waiting for my punishment. As we shed our cold and wet clothes in the entryway, Mom came around the corner, or the kitchen met the hallway. She paused when she saw her sick husband, looking worse now than when he left, with dried blood on his forehead to boot. What happened? She cried. I cringed. Dad gave her an apologetic look, looked over at me and said, "It's okay, hon. I just fell." I tell this story to exemplify the qualities of my father. Dedication to his family, no matter what. Sacrifice. He had no business taking his kids out on a cold adventure when he was sick as a dog, but that's who he was. Forgiveness. Typically, it was Mom saving my hide, but Dad stuck his neck out for me and all of us plenty. Grit. In a world now where everyone has an excuse for not doing what needs to be done, my father was the ultimate grinder. And yet, finesse. For all the tough World War II, nose to the grindstone qualities of my father, he somehow found a way to be sensitive and considerate of everyone he was close with. You couldn't ask for a better father to give you the blueprint on how to live your life. Love you, Dad.
Hello, everybody. My name is Benny, and I'll tell you a few other names your father called me. I don't have anything sad to say. I might make you cry one time, but I have a lot of funny things to share with you. That man was hysterical. Good to see you again, Greg.
Yes.
I have some stories here, and I wrote this down last night, and I laughed every line that I wrote. Sacre bleu. How many times you heard him say that? You know how long it took me to understand what that really was? My wife had to tell me. Because as we all do, sometimes we repeat what we hear from your cherished friends. She told me what it was. I was like, really? That's what it means? I'm part French. How come I didn't know that?
What does it mean?
Can't tell you.
Oh.
Put it this way, it's pretty funny. He and I shared, I've known him for 25 years. I moved here in 2000, and I started working at Town of Blooming Grove. Is where I first met Ken. Or Kenny. I had a lot of different names for him, as he did for me. As Jared just said, it's the hardest working man I've ever seen. And our personalities really matched very well. I was retired from New York City Fire Department EMS, and we worked together measuring houses, and we got a lot of work done. We worked very hard in the morning, and we laughed all day long, especially in the afternoons after we got our work done. And we couldn't wait to get out of there sometimes. But I got to know your dad very, very well. One of my cherished friends, and I only have a few, and he was significantly older than me. But we were able to share a lot of things together. They're not in chronological order. I tried to do that, but I'm old. It didn't work out. We were measuring this big red barn on top of this hill that's back there. And it was a snowy day. And as we always do, we got a 100-foot tape measure. He holds one in, I run down the other side with it, call out the number, he jots it down on a piece of paper. I go around the other side, I'm like, where is he? I come back around, he had fallen. He slipped on some of the snow. I'm like, what? Come on, man, we got work to do. We got time for this. So he was like, got him up, we finished our job. We get back to the office, and somebody said, how did things go? A little slippery out there. He's like, yeah, Ben pushed me down. Why would you say that? He said, he just pushed me down. He said, he's tired of working, he don't want to deal with this nonsense no more. He just pushed me down to the ground. The guy's brutal. All I could do is just laugh and chuckle. We did this every day, on and on and on, where we traded comedic lines back and forth. I just waited, and I learned how to play and learned what a long joke is from your dad. Your dad is the most patient man I've ever met, and he can take a joke and just wait days for it to fester, and just wait for you to finally get it, and just say something to him. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but that's comedic genius right there. I didn't understand this until one day we rolled into that same cemetery that you were talking about, and he had some flowers that were in the back seat. I didn't even know they were there. So he said, I'll be right back. He walked over to a gravesite, came back, and he was quiet. Not normal for Ken. Not the Ken that I knew. I was like, what's going on, buddy? He's like, no, just had to take care of something. I didn't press him anymore. A couple days went by. I asked again. He said, that was my youngest daughter. She died from diabetes very young. And I was like, and every once in a while he did this when we were working together. If it fell on one of those days, I don't remember, I think it was her birthday that he would do that, and he'd bring flowers every single time. I got to know what the date was. I've since forgotten. But I would remember to try to take that day off, to let him have that day to himself and let him do what he does. He was that special kind of a guy. He did like that place quite a bit. That's the sad one. He told me a lot of stories about meeting you in Dumont and times you spent at dances. Affectionately called you Mamma Mia. I adopted that and started calling you that from time to time too. I taught him something one time. We had to sketch all of these houses that we're building, all of the new stuff that's back here where you guys used to live and all of that stuff. We had to sketch all that stuff out. I said, hey, I got an idea. Why don't we just take one of these cards and make a template out of it, punch all these little holes in it, and there's only 6 or 7 different houses. We can save a lot of time. Put it down there, draw the lines, boom, 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 we're done. We'll just knock them all out. Okay, he said, I never thought about that. I said, yeah, because you're old. That's why I'm here. And we started doing it that way for a while until we started running into little bump outs here that didn't make any sense. He was like, I knew your idea wouldn't work. But that went on for a while. That old pickup truck that he had, the red one, with the big side mirrors, he came to work one day with this big dent on the side of it. I'm like, all right, who'd you run over now? Any of my family members, or was it somebody else? He said, no, a deer ran into the side of me. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. He said, yeah, I was driving home and a deer just plowed right into the side of the truck. I had to believe him, because he never lied. He never told any short tales or anything. And I was like, that's pretty interesting, in the side of the truck. So he had to bend back the mirror, because it had those 3-point mirrors, the big chrome mirrors hanging out inside of it. And I liked that truck. That was a great truck. Had to bend it back for him, and that was pretty funny. We always talked about tools. Both of us excelled in math, but differently. So when we had to make square footage and things like that, we always raced each other. Who can get to the answer first? His pencil, he went everywhere with that pencil, whether it was in his ear or in his pocket, it was somewhere. And half the time, I did it in my head. And if I didn't get it right, I was off by maybe 1 or 2 square feet. He said, how do you do that? I said, I have no idea, but how do you write so fast with that pencil and get all that stuff done so fast? I don't get it. And this is every day we would do this. We talked about carpentry, woodworking, talked about his kids all the time, Mercedes, when he worked at Mercedes. I met Grant early on with the alarm company. I have since forgotten the name of it. It goes to show you, 62. ADT. I'm forgetting fast. I know you put the alarm system in our house long before I even got to meet you, and your name came up when I had a problem, and they said, yeah, you gotta call this guy. I'm like, I know that guy.
2002.
Yeah.
Does it
Yes.
still work?
Yes.
It does.
Yes. Yeah. Half of it.
Just curious.
No, it worked fine. We talked about winemaking. I think that was you, right? And there was a few other, there was somebody else in the family who was a business owner, and one was a carpenter. I don't remember all of them, but I wrote down the ones that I remembered. He helped me tremendously in two aspects. One of them was my first marriage when I had a divorce. This is when shortly after I moved up here in 2000. It's my lovely second wife, Sharon.
Hi,
Sharon.
And I promise you, second to none. He helped me great with that. But more importantly, at 9/11, we were working together, and we just came back to the office to pick up some more supplies, and the first incident happened. And I said to him, you know I gotta go, right? He's like, where are you gonna go? I said, I'll be back in a couple of days. I don't think he understood what I used to do, but I went down, I came back. I was not the same person when I returned for a good couple of months. I grew a beard. It didn't work out too well. Did look like a vagrant. But he talked to me. He said, you're not okay. You need to do something about this because it's going to hurt you pretty bad if you don't. And he was absolutely right. That was all I needed to turn my emotions around at the time. I asked my wife, I really don't talk about that incident at all. Didn't really talk about it with him, but I felt more comfortable discussing some things with him. And we talked about a lot of stuff. He, very special friend.
Yeah.
Very, very special friend. And he really did help me with that. We were known as the twins. I still don't know if I was Danny DeVito or Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know which one I was, but if there was a darker one, it would have been me. And then that led on to other ones, Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor, Chico and the Man. That was probably more fitting. I think I was the man. I think he was Chico. I called him Bob Hope a lot. Archie Bunker. My favorite was Popeye because he had the bow legs, and it was Air Force. He was Navy. I gave him a hard time about that. He told me a story about cherry pie. I don't remember if it was his mom that used to make cherry pie from cherries from the tree, that the skin was so thin, it took a lot to make because the pits were so large. But he told me that story. And I don't remember exactly what started that story. With a lot of stuff, we shared so many things going back and forth. But the mulberry tree that was in your yard, a kid coming from New York City, I never tasted mulberry. I don't eat things from trees. We just don't do that. You know, the dogs in the city are around trees. We don't do that. So he had me taste his mulberry, and I was like, that's pretty good. Let me get a few more of those. And then he talked to me about Mamma Mia's escarole soup, that you were making escarole soup that one time. Never had it before. I haven't had it since. It was very, very good. Very good. And he asked me a couple of days later, how did I turn out for you? I'm like, it turned out great. What are you talking about? He said, you didn't have to go to the bathroom or anything? I'm like, no. Why? He said, usually it makes you go to the bathroom. That's what escarole does. I'm like, no, I didn't have that problem. I never told him the truth. But it was great. Wild raspberries, on some of the places we went, he'd say, oh, there's a raspberry. Ken, you sure that's a raspberry? We'll find out in a couple minutes, but he's like, it's a raspberry. Trust me on that. I'm like, okay. We drive around and he would teach me so much about the local history of this area. Cactuses that are growing on the side of Route 94 that I didn't even know they were there until he pointed them out. And I'd taken pictures of them and everything else. Yes, cactus. And they would bloom every certain years, by the train trestle, going towards Chester. He'd ask me questions and test me on my knowledge of things all day long, and he was amazed that I knew as much as I did. I was amazed that I knew as much as I did. It was like a rolling Jeopardy inside that truck that we drove around every day looking at stuff. And the knowledge he imparted, his daily donuts, when he would get up early in the morning, go get a donut and a newspaper. And yes, he did read the obituaries like an obsession. I didn't understand it either. I just knew as long as my name is not in it, he's not in it. There were many times where we had these long jokes, and one time, he said, hey boy, do you mind getting my bag for me over there? I let it go, and I was like, I'm just gonna wait for this one. This is gonna be so good. A few days later, we were somewhere else talking to another taxpayer, and I said, yes, we're related. This is my father, I'm his illegitimate son. My mother is Grace Jones. Oh, I had to listen. Grace Jones, Diana Ross. And then a few days later, I switched it up and I said, he adopted me. I have 2 fathers. I said, yeah, they're probably gay, but I said, my other father's James Earl Jones, that's why I look like this. Will Chamberlain, that's why I'm so tall. And he was just like, you outdid me. Hey, man, gloves came off as soon as you said And the last story I'm going to leave you with is one time I went to visit him in the hospital. I think you probably had just left. And he was like, hey, what are you doing here? I'm like, why are you asking me? What are you doing here? What did you do now that Mama Mia had to beat you up and put you here? He said, I don't know why I'm here. I'm like, I already know why you're here. I was like, you need help on anything? He said, no, I got to go to the bathroom or something like that. So he got up out of the bed slowly. His gown opened up in the back. Luckily I had my sunglasses on. I put my sunglasses on. He turned back around and said, why are you wearing sunglasses inside? I said, if you ever look behind you, man, that's pretty bright. I said, cracks I'm okay with. The brightness, you have to turn that down some. Ken was a great man, a great friend to me, and a great mentor as well. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share these stories with you. Other things I can't tell you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Thank you.
That's yours.
Well,
That's funny. I remember that.
Benny met our family. Now you met the greatest son. Right? Some closing remarks real quick. Some quick memories for me. In my 66 years, there's a day that doesn't go by I don't think about Dad. I'm the first to go with Dad and learn about carpentry and travel with him so many times. If I had $1 for every time I heard Dad open the door at 5 o'clock in the morning, reveille, reveille, or throw water in my face to wake me up, which he did a few times. Drive to Jersey, work down there in that area in Bergen County. There was one thing I always looked forward to, 2 things that my dad would say. Pick up the tools, which is the greatest thing to hear because it's time to get out of there. You were like, oh man, I'm just wrapping up the cords. And then driving, just barely before we got out of town, there was a liquor store, grocery store. We would stop by every day and get an ice cold bottle of soda, glass soda, and a little thing of pretzels about that big. They were about that big of pretzels. And I didn't want to sing to Dad, but I was hoping he'd always stop. As we get closer to the store, I'd be like, is he gonna stop? Is he gonna stop? And then sure enough, he'd pull over, I'd be like, yes! And he'd give you a couple of dollars, and you'd go in, and we'd on the way home, we'd be like, and Dad would always take the pretzels like they're serving them. But two of the most emotional things, memorable things for me, that my dad taught me, something I really, really miss nowadays, is that we used to go hunting a lot. Did we ever get, well, I never got something, but it wasn't so much about getting something, it was about my dad would take me into the woods, whether it was here in this area. We used to go deer hunting a lot up in Vermont. We went bear hunting one time in Maine. Just sitting in the woods and listening. And it's amazing when you're in the woods and there's nobody around, by the way. I'm talking deep in the woods. And it's fall, and you can hear the wind through the trees. My dad taught me that. He said, just sit and listen. It's not so much about getting something, it's about being in the woods. Man, do I miss that. I don't have that opportunity where we live now, but especially the woods here. I was here December, just after Dad passed. For me, it was emotional. I got down by our railroad tracks, and I walked the tracks. Looks a little tiny bit different now, but I remember going down there, and we used to go small game hunting, but I remember that. And the last thing I want to tell you is, Dad told me the greatest honors was serving his country. So when I was fairly young, we would go down by 9W. Some of you probably don't remember this, but they used to park the ships. The Hudson River has a big bay right before you get to Bear Mountain. And I didn't know this. We took me down there, and there was a battle row of ships. Battleships, destroyers, and there was Dad's ship. And you could tell, he said, I think that's my ship. And he walked over, and there it was, 834, USS Turner. And I didn't realize the significance of that experience. I remember, seeing that, he stood there, and he saluted the ship. He was a great patriot. He loved this country more than anything. Mom will tell you, he had patriotic things in his pictures of George Washington. He was very much into our country, the colonial history, and serving this great country. It taught me to love this country and be a patriot like him. Some of the greatest memories, he told me stories about him serving on the ship and visiting the different countries and the routine they would go through with the raising on the flag on the ship every morning. And when they came into dock, all the sailors, whatever port they came into, every country, all the sailors would stand on the edge of the ship in their class uniforms, just to represent their country into each country, because at that time Europe was so pro-American because we had just liberated their countries from World War II, and the Korean War wasn't far from that. So I miss that part about Dad telling me those great stories about him serving the country. But those are just some of the stories. There's so many, as you well know. So maybe we can talk about that later. So we're going to close this service today. We appreciate all you coming so far away to travel here to be here. Dad is with us today. He is with Vanessa right now, and they're looking down and smiling and laughing at all our stories and enjoying our time together. So we appreciate so much and love all of you so much for coming. We're going to close our service today. Dad's grandson, Bryce, is going to give the closing prayer.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are most grateful for this opportunity to gather today and celebrate the life of Ken Klumpp. It's a blessing to see how many people's lives he affected and the way the lasting effect that he had on them. We ask you to please bless Joanne at this time, that she'll be comforted by thy Spirit. We're so grateful for this opportunity once again to gather together. We say these things in thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.